A glorious day in Sydney, the scene of this round 6 clash between the Sydney Swans, the reigning premiers, and the Brisbane Lions. As our coverage on Fox Footy continues, a big day of footy coming up, and it starts with the reigning premiers in action and the Brisbane Lions, as I said, challenging and trying to improve all the time. Paul Roos, premiership coach, of course, with the Sydney Swans, and former champion from St Kilda, Danny Frawley joins us. Guys, welcome. Cracking day for footy, Roosy, isn't it?
Yeah, no complaints today, Spud. There shouldn't be too much slipping over or fumbling the ball. I mean, it's a beautiful day in Sydney.
Not sure whether it's great for defenders. These are the type of days as a defender you think, we need a bit more wind or a little bit more hail or rain, Roosy.
Yeah, no, normally look out the window. If you're playing centre-half forward, you love it. Centre-half back, don't want to get out of bed today.
We're about to be joined by Michael Voss, the coach of the Lions. Just as he joins us, it's a big period coming up for them. They've got a tough challenge, tough 6 weeks ahead. What do you think today will bring for them?
Yeah, look, I think for Vossi it's about, and we'll ask him now, it's probably Vossi about just sustaining. I mean, you've had some good periods of play, you've had some good games over the last 14 months. It's a bit about, I guess, can you sustain that against the reigning premiers?
Yeah, consistency. We've had 3 good games, we've been pretty solid. That being fabulous, and we've had 2 horrors, so the inconsistency being there, but our ability to compete for the whole 4 quarters is paramount for today.
Just watched the game, the Neefle. Andrew Rains, he played quite well against Jonesy last week. Was there a match-up for, obviously wasn't a match-up for him today?
I was decided to go a slightly different way there without putting all the cards on the table, but obviously we'd gone a little bit of a slightly different match-up, and as we know, Sydney can throw their team around. They can go forward, back, midfield, so we've just got to probably pick accordingly.
And you're obviously more worried about the blokes that are playing than aren't, but Blackie, I mean, second game, just a little bit underdone, probably available to next week. We saw him running around today in the seconds.
Yeah, he's a guy that sort of hasn't really completed the pre-season. I mean, thankfully he's had about 15 of them under his belt, but part of the match practice he played the previous 2 weeks was part of his actually training schedule, so really he's only just got into himself in terms of just making sure he's match fit and give himself a chance to finish out games really strong.
Paparone and Mays, they've been giving you something in the last couple of weeks, haven't they? Some really good things to look forward to there.
Oh, absolutely. If we can keep playing these guys, we want to. They're absolutely modern footballer. They'll play 200 games for us. They're exceptional runners. They follow up their contests really well, and we know they'll have their ups and downs, but we're prepared to persist through those and get some games under these guys because they'll make us better in the long term.
Matty Leuenberger, he's 24. I know he's had a lot of injuries, and he's an early draft. He's got 75 games under his belt. Is he now at the level he needs to step up and carry this team along a little bit?
Well, we certainly hope so. We've missed him a lot. There's another guy, Brent Staker, who's was out here before, and we've missed him too. And they're pretty paramount. You've got to have a good big man, and we think we've got Billy Longer coming through, and obviously Matty Leuenberger's got to spend a bit of time forward because I guess his next stage of development is to be able to go forward and kick goals. And he kicked a few last week, but he's got to do that consistently also.
And Sydney have been a great tackling team, and again last week I think they had 90 tackles. Is that something you try and prepare your players for during the week? People see them as a stoppage team, but the stoppage is really a result of the tackles that they create, and they don't really give much time and space to the opposition.
Oh, they're probably the best at being able to get the ball back off the opposition, and they do that either by the way that they really close out those uncontested marks or their tackling pressure. So we're not going to get a lot of time and space today, but we've picked a side that we think can physically go with the guys, and then it's about being able to run with them and sustain that intensity as you alluded before, Roosie.
I know you take it one game at a time, Vossi, but we talked about it challenging. Well, we're saying 5 weeks ahead for you here, but it's probably the next 6 or 7 weeks, really. You just meet great side after great side, don't you?
Well, that's the competition. I mean, you've got to run into them eventually, and a lot of people will have a look at that schedule. I must admit, we don't really look past it a hell of a lot other than this contest, and we'll throw our best at it, and then we turn up next week for the next one. And the thing that we always look at there is people don't take consideration you have your home venue games, and the Gabba is something that we want to make sure that we can get a hold of. But clearly, games like this are a great test for us and a good challenge, and we've got to quit ourselves well.
Great opportunity for Dane Zorko though. Like, he started as a forward. He's just a really good footballer. A lot of clubs overpassed him. He's got a great opportunity today to play against some premiership midfielders.
Yeah, and certainly, Dane started the season a little slow. We know his pre-season was fantastic and just started a little bit slow, a little bit more attention. Sides are talking about him a lot more now, but his burst from congestion, his use forward of the footy and his smarts around goals is what makes him exceptional. And then he's like a dog chasing a tyre. He just goes after tackle after tackle after tackle and creates that forward pressure.
Vossi, thanks for joining us. Any more of a hint of what you're doing differently? That you're
Not at the moment.
Okay,
right. You can come back later and tell us.
Up to these blokes to find out. Thanks for joining us, Michael Voss. Well, let's look at the round so far, guys. What's sort of taken your eye, I suppose, as we look back on round 6?
Look, for me, I guess it's the marking confusion. A couple of real glaring ones, Adelaide versus Hawthorn, but we've sort of seen it over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I've really noticed it. I'm not sure, Spud, anyone really knows. And here's a couple here, just a real tiny, and we'll go over it again, but a real tiny little nudge. I mean, I don't know whether you call that it's certainly not a push. I mean, it's just a
scuff.
Yeah, so we see that one in there. That was Thompson not being paid the mark, and I believe it went down the other end of the ground.
Yeah,
here's the other one here. This is Gunston versus Riley. Again, just a little push. Now, that one wasn't paid. So one was paid and one wasn't paid. And I think if he's looking at them, terrific vision this. Both of them together, side by side. You couldn't, I mean, not that every marking contest is the same, but you couldn't get two similar marking contests like that.
Well, there's inconsistencies there. They both should have been a mark. I think in the letter of the law, Thompson did put a hand on his arm, but in the context of the game, he kicks that. They go 5 points down. It goes down the other end, and Hawthorn kicked 4 unanswered goals.
I think that's the problem, Hutto, that the letter of the law, they are free kicks.
They are,
so in a marking contest, we should be seeing a free kick just about every single marking contest. Now, if that happens, the fans will be jumping the fence.
We might as well all go home if it's going to be a free kick every time in a marking contest. Spud, we saw one of the teams that had won all the games yesterday lose for the first time, Port Adelaide, but the cream sort of rising to the top, you think?
Yeah, well, I saw the Bombers GWS yesterday. Look, they were a little half asleep in the first half. Take nothing away from GWS. Cameron, they've found one there. We know he's a good player. He kicked 6 a PB for him. They were great early. The Bombers got over the line, but Geelong last night stamped themselves as one of the premiership favourites. We talked about Richmond in the pre-season. Their ability without the ball at the Tigers needs a lot to be questioned about. They need to take a leaf out of Sydney here today. But Geelong were absolutely outstanding. And Friday night...
How good next week?
Friday night at Etihad. It'd be a shame they can't put it to the G because they get 85,000 there. Geelong v Essendon and Etihad. What a game.
Who's your tip? Who's your tip at this early stage?
Well, Geelong's form has been terrific. I mean, Essendon weren't great yesterday. I mean, as you said, they're probably half foot off the pedal. But I think I love about Geelong just the mix of old and new. I mean, they've got some really good, exciting young talent, but their senior leaders just stand up week in, week out.
I think resilience of the Bombers for mine. And then obviously Hurley comes back, Fletcher, Winderlink. So they get some really good players back. Paddy Ryder.
Just one thing for mine, it's going to be interesting to watch on the shows, 360 and the Couch, whether you might start discussing Buddy Franklin's form. First time since his first year in footy that he's gone goalless in consecutive games. Now, he kicked 5 behinds last week, so he could have easily kicked goals, and he was up the ground last night. I think he had about 17 disposals and 2 behinds. So, is there any...
For me, Hutto, it's just the similarities between the Buddy and the Cloak thing. I think Cloak, from memory, started off pretty well last year and just tailed off. There was some real frustration in Buddy's game last night. There's some frustration in Cloak. We see Cloak now as a contracted player, I think 4 or 5 years or whatever it was, playing absolutely fantastic football. It affected Cloak last year. Looks to be affecting early days, but it does look to be affecting Buddy as well.
And go back another year, Travis Boak as well at Port. Where's he going to come back to Geelong? And I think there's no doubt mentally he's not sure where he's at. I think it's a positive balance to Clarkson and Hawthorn. They're winning without him having an impact, but they need Buddy in form.
All right, well, there's 3 big games of footy this afternoon. You'll see them all on Fox Footy. Let's check in now with Matty Campbell at sportsbet.com.au. Matty?
Thanks, Hutto. Well, it's a Sunday with 3 very short price favourites, and they're all expected to win by comfortable margins. First up, the Swans for this game at $1.06 head-to-head with the Brisbane Lions at $9, and the line has been set at 42.5 points, meaning the Swans have to win by 43 points or more for punters to collect $1.92. Now, the line being over 40 points and the margins, 40 plus, is only paying $1.75. If it's a closer game, you can pick up $2.60, and history and form suggest if the Lions are to upset the Swans at the SCG, it'll be by a small margin, 1-39, paying a whopping $8. And for the first goal kicker, well, some really good value on offer here for the Sydney Swans players, all paying double figures. Jonathan Brown is the favourite at $9, but he's having trouble getting supply from his midfield. So Reid is paying $11, Big Mike Pike at $13, and Adam Goods also at $13, or there's a host of midfielders at bigger odds. For all the odds on this game and the other 2 games today, simply head to sportsbet.com.au.
Thank you, Matty. Well, as we said, it's a beautiful day up here at the SCG. Do you like those the gear for the coach?
Yeah, the Vossy sunglasses there, Spud.
Yeah, well, look, the UV rays of, occupational health and safety, but he's just glancing an eye at the moment. I think there's a frown under those glasses because he's watching the Sydney midfield just in front of us go to their work. So I think he's a little bit concerned.
That's not a new deal with the Coaches Association, is it?
Oh, well,
Spud would have got an earn out of it if it was.
All right, time for the Great Wall Blast from the past, and these 2 sides have had some great clashes in the past. Let's have a look at one in particular.
To win 40 seconds to play. Black shakes the tackle. Luke Power gets the fans excited. Jonathan Brown. Can he do it with a monster ball? Jonathan Brown has kicked 68 goals this season. None more important. Oh, man! He's got the job done, and we are level. We have a draw at the Gabba.
Jonathan Brown, of course, Brownie's still going, but Hawley's with us on our team. Of course, he'll be on the boundary this afternoon. Welcome, Baz.
Thanks, mate. Beautiful day.
Well, it is a beautiful day. Some good memories there.
Oh, great memories. There's been a lot spoken about the rivalry between West Coast and Sydney, but it was just as harsh between Sydney and Brisbane. They were always great clashes, always hard contested footy games. They were always close. We've seen a couple of shots after the siren there to decide the game. They were always close.
Jonathan Brown, how do you rate his form? And obviously a former player, just retired. Can you see him? He's obviously his best footy's behind him. What can he add to the team, Brownie?
Oh, look, I think just his sheer work rate. That's something that he's always brung, but he's not a full forward. He's not quick off the mark. He's just got to grind backman down, and we know what a great player is. He's always going to give 100% effort, and he certainly does that. He's got to bring that today.
Well, you guys both love grassroots footy and getting involved, and Foxtel and Fox Footy certainly do with their club rewards program. If you haven't got involved in this, then you should. Giving back to grassroots. Here's the boys down at Chelsea Footy Club getting their sharings. foxfootyclubrewards.com.au is where to go to register. It's easy to earn the rewards that are on offer. You've got training jumpers, you've got sharings, all sorts of great stuff. And you even possibly get the chance of not only meeting Barry Hall, the boys, but Buddy Franklin might even pop down to training with the great Dermot Brewer.
Baz, you were very excited to be down there, down at Chelsea.
I was giving out first aid kits and said if you stuff up any, you're going to have to use it. So.
All right. A big day today, not just for the Swans and the Lions, but in particular Jarrad McVeigh. And what a terrific player he's been, a consistent player he's been. And his former coach, Paul Roos, has caught up with him.
Well, Mackie, here we are in the middle of the SCG for your 200th game. I would imagine a far cry from where you first started. So what were your early memories of your junior career?
Yeah, I started at the Carnival Bombers on the Central Coast, and because Dad moved from Melbourne up to the Central Coast there, and I started playing footy there, and then my parents quickly realised that we probably wouldn't be seen as players or potential to play AFL. My brother and I, if we were stuck on the Central Coast, so they drove us to Pennant Hills down the highway. That was the closest team, and then eventually from then you make your state teams and all that type of stuff, and then eventually drafted to the Swans.
It wasn't always smooth sailing. From memory, your draft year, you only played 2 or 3 games due to injury.
Yeah, the year before my draft year, I dislocated my shoulder. We elected not to have the surgery, and so missed the whole year then, and then made the Island series in the under-16s. I did my shoulder in the second game there, so that was pretty devastating. Leading up to the draft, had the operation, and then fortunately you picked me up at the end of that year.
And the evolution as a player, I mean, you came in as a high draft pick, and obviously high draft picks are very good ball winners.
Yeah.
You had a great ability to win the ball. But take us through the early years when you played on some of the great midfielders of the competition.
Yeah, that was hard. You changed my game style a lot, which I'm thankful for now. But back then you don't really realise what's happening. But I played on Nigel Lapham's probably one of the hardest players I've played on. Cousins, the way they worked, how hard they worked in games, really taught me a lot. And reaction times to where the ball's going was another key point that I always try and focus on. And playing those guys was a really good learning curve for me. And then hopefully I've taken that into my career.
Now as a captain, I guess one of the great things about most clubs, have got tremendous lineage of captains, and obviously the Swans are one, Paul Kelly. But tell us, in your era, Stewie Maxfield, Brett Kerr, Craig, there's obviously a list of them. Yeah. What did you pick up and what did you learn from each of those guys?
I think one of the main things is with all those guys, they performed on game day. They were hard and tough and led from the front like that. Guys like Leo Barry didn't have a lot to say, but you knew when he was out there that he was doing whatever he could. And Kirk in that, they pushed me into areas that I didn't think I could go with honesty and feedback to the boys, good and bad. And I tried to learn a lot from those guys. And I think I'm still learning as a captain now. And Kieran's come along as well, and we learn together and help each other out. And hopefully I'm doing the right things on and off the field.
Well, mate, 200 games. You're having a terrific season. Do something special for me today, mate. Just give me something to chat about in the coaches, in the box up there, the commentary box. Can you do that for me?
I'll try and do something for you, mate. I promise you. Thank you. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Old friends catching up in the middle of the ground. Baz, you watched him develop. Ruzi told a bit of the story there. What's made him such a good player, do you think?
Oh, look, I've been fortunate enough to see him develop. He's a great footy person, and I never seen him as a leader when he first came to the club. He's grown every year he's played. He's obviously had a lot going on off field, but he's done himself and his family very, very proud. He's in career best form right now.
Well, talking about leaders on a Sunday night, it's just full of leaders out at your show there, Spud, after the bounce. Looking forward to it. And the Golden Fist been doing a bit of miles lately too.
Well, as we know, Baz, we took it over to Wellington. You were there, Hutto.
Yeah,
we trekked all around Wellington there in New Zealand. It was absolutely magnificent. That took us about 8 hours to walk up a 1 kilometre hill there.
Yeah, it was quite
fairly
strenuous,
heavy,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Fairly heavy, the Golden Fist. But I'm looking forward to see Teddy Richards and Daniel Merritt do some of their finest work today, Baz.
Well, yeah, they've been great for a long time, but I just couldn't believe you had it on the plane with you. I thought you would have put it in your bag, packed it away, but you were very proud of it. You had it on your lap the whole time.
Well, not only that, it got upgraded to business class, and I was still down in economy, unfortunately. So even the hosties were well aware of what was going on there, Hutto.
All right. We're going to take a break from the SCG. There's plenty to come. Sydney and Brisbane. Big challenge for the Lions this afternoon, that's for sure. We're getting ready for action. You'll see it all live right here on Fox Footy.
Opportunity for Fisher to maybe do some damage. There's lots more Swans than Saints back there, though.
I think they block off the ball better than any defensive group in the league.
Great combination from two premiership players there. Smith had the man covered. Grundy just came back, turned his body and took the mark.
Some of their blocking, was pretty interesting, but we'll learn from it.
I don't know why Scott brought that up in the press conference immediately after that game. I have no idea.
It's just them getting away.
No, you said that. I didn't say that. I just said we need to have a good look at the way they block 10, 15 metres off the ball and don't get infringed against. So we'd like some more of that into our game.
It's not really the right time to be bringing that up.
If they're doing that and they're doing it well and the umpires aren't picking it up or are picking it up, it's that technique is very effective.
Beautiful use of the body there of Ted Richards on Trent Dennis Lane.
For us, I look at Reece Stanley, Nathan Wright, Dylan Robertson as younger defenders, and then I look at Ted Richards and Grundy, and I watch what they did with their blocking. We need to take something out of that. So, is it a criticism? No, I'd like more of it in our game.
I've got no idea what Scott was talking about.
Well, it was pretty interesting coming out of the clash last week in Wellington. Scotty Waters' comments, you guys followed it up with him on the couch, Roosie. What did you make of the vision? There were some pretty interesting little incidents picked out there.
Yeah, interesting enough, I think on the couch he sort of more talked about the midfield. I mean, I must admit when he sort of said it, he talked about the defenders, as we can see here. I mean, a lot of defenders, one of your roles, Spud, you were one of the great defenders, one of your roles is to sort of keep the forward away from the footy, as we see here with Nick Smith. I don't think there's any holding or grabbing, and it's really just trying to hold your body positioning.
I think the one with Nick Smith, he'd probably have to put his hands in the air a little bit just to make it, obviously he was trying to go for the mark and protecting the player in back instead of forcing the arm. So
just another one for the umpires to try and adjudicate on, though, isn't it?
Well, but Sydney are renowned for being one of the better teams without the ball, and that's why.
Well, I think if you're teaching the technique, you want to teach your backman to take space.
Yeah.
Then it's up to the umpire. Is it illegal? You don't want to grab him an arm, grabbing a jumper, but you do want the forward to have to run around you. You just don't want him to give it free access to the football.
Well, Spud, the Vero KPIs, what have you got for us today?
Well, against Geelong 2 weeks ago, Rosie, I think it's their lowest tackle count, Sydney, for about 3 years, and they got 90 against Sydney. I think they said enough's enough, and their average, it was 28 above their average, so it'll be interesting to see whether they just continue to build that, you would have thought.
Yeah, look, no doubt. The Geelong game was probably maybe a watershed game. I think it was like 40-something tackles, so they certainly upped the ante last week, and they're a great tackling side.
And another area where Sydney have been extremely good is denying the opposition scores once they get the ball inside the forward 50. They're ranked 44% of the time the team score. That's an amazing stat in itself. I think the average is about 60%. Not only that, they're ranked 2 in the competition for denying the opposition the amount of uncontested ball. And what that tells me is after that Geelong game, Rosie, 2 weeks ago, I think the coaching staff and the players said enough's enough.
Yeah, and I think we heard Vossy talk about that, Hutto. Yeah. They'll be aware, the Lions today will be aware, there won't be a lot of time and space. So I would suggest they would have done a lot of work on their quick hands, trying to get it outside.
But again, you don't want to get forced into a tempo when you actually have got time and space, and that's the problem when you play the Swans. Sometimes if you do have that time, you think you don't, and you end up blazing away and you're kicking it back to Grundy and Richards and Matner, who tend to zone off.
We'll watch for that today, that's for sure. We're also going to watch for Dane Zorko. He had a little bit of a slow start, slightly slow start to the year, Spud, but he's certainly come good in the last few weeks. He had a huge game last year against the Swans.
Yeah, well, this is a bit of footage here of his work rate. Now, Rosie, this is where he's really improved.
Yep.
He's in the midfield where we circle, and the ball at the moment is on the half-back flank. I think this is a big improvement. Why Vossi now is playing him in the midfield, because he's always in the game. I think as a half-forward, he used to spectate a little bit, so the ball's still in the wing, but he's saying, how can I get involved in this game? And some really good hard gut running there. In the past, I reckon you would have seen him spectating. You know, it was a bit of a scrappy bit of play there, but he kicks a goal, and last week was probably one of his better games of his career. You know, the 29 disposals, 16 score involvements.
Yeah, look, it's extraordinary. I guess that's great vision for anyone playing AFL football, but also young guys that want to get recruited. I mean, AFL football, Hutto, is about running. You've got to have work rate, doesn't matter whether you're a back pocket, forward pocket, or a midfielder, but they're really good stats from last week's game, and he's a really impressive player.
Did you ever see Royce Hart play footy?
Not a lot of Royce Hart, no. I was a Blue Boy fan. A lot of, Mark McClure and Rod Ashman, Kenny Sheldon.
Well, some say he's the greatest centre-half forward of all time, obviously up there with the likes of Wayne Carey. Spud, what about you? Did you ever see him play?
A little bit, not much, mainly on the tape, but just take an absolute hanger like yourself, Ruzi, and as Tommy Hapey said, just get out of the road, leave it to Royce.
Well, exactly right. Well, he's the latest guest of Mike Sheehan on the Couch, a fantastic series Monday night, and of course Open Mic follows, and Royce Hart is Mike's guest this week, so make sure you stay tuned for it.
Justin Martin, who inherited your number 4 at Richmond, is a ruck rover, and he's the height you were when you played centre-half forward.
That surprised me when I read that, yes. He might play centre-half forward one day.
I don't think
he learns
will.
to jump.
I don't think he will. Who appeals to you, man? Who do you watch and just love the way they play?
Jonathan Brown.
Yeah.
Centre-half forward.
Yeah. That's not surprising.
He is a terrific player.
He still is?
But there are a lot of players over there that draw people to the game. I'd go and watch Buddy Franklin. Not many back then.
No, and you haven't named a midfielder yet?
No, I haven't. The midfielder's got a midfielder medal.